You that the views expressed in today's show do not reflect the views of KZLX, KNWT, or Northwest Missouri State University. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
And welcome back into the weekend sports kickoff. For the final time this year, we are streaming live on KNWT Channel 8's Facebook page. Also, you can hear us. You can't see us on X106. Trevor Mater, Ryan Elliott, Andrew Bobinick, Kramer Sansone. It is Jersey Day for everyone except Ryan. We are repping our jerseys.
Discounts.
Kind of. Even our producers are repping jerseys as well. I know I saw that Caleb Winslow rocking the Sidney Crosby jersey. So I appreciate the hockey, that we've got all types of sports. We're not discriminating. I'm sure if Jacob was here, he'd show up in his probably his racing outfit or something.
Helmet and all. Helmet and all.
That'd be great.
That actually would have been really
man.
great. I know Jacob's not listening, but a part of me wishes he was. Moving on to our college football picks. This will be the final, I guess, pick'em of the season, except for the bowl extravaganza that we're going to try to do sometime not on a Friday. How's that sound? Do a bowl extravaganza
on a not Friday. I'm in.
Okay. When you look at these picks, Ryan is in the lead. Jacob not far behind. I tried turning my phone off, and it wouldn't turn off. That's why Kramer's looking at me. I've had a rough couple of weeks. It has not been good, so I don't want to talk about it. But those are our college football picks. First pick'em of the week, we're going to start with the Pac-12 championship game. This is the game going on tonight. Number 17, Utah takes on Washington, who's ranked number 11. Both teams are 9-3. This game's being played at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. Washington is a 3-point favorite. Utah, they've never won a Pac-12 title. Washington's looking for their second in 3 years. And Utah is the sixth Pac-12 South team to make the title game since the inception of the title game in 2011. So every team in the Pac-12 South has now made the Pac-12 title game.
When you said that the first time, when you said they're the sixth Pac-12 South team to make the Pac-12 title game, I was like, doesn't this Pac-12 South team make it every year? But
there are six different. Yeah, there are six different one. Yep. So these two teams played earlier this year. Washington beat Utah 21-7. That was way back in week 3. Jacob is picking the Huskies. Andrew, who are you picking?
I am siding with Jacob on this one. I'm going Washington. Looking at just statistic-wise, both these teams have a rusher over 1,000 yards. Myles Gaskin for Washington, 1,000 yards or 1,076 yards, 10 touchdowns. Utah has Zach Moss, 1,092 yards, 11 touchdowns. The difference maker, I think, is going to be that passing game. Jake Browning's got over 2,600 yards. Tyler Huntley for Utah only has 1,700, and I think that's going to play a huge part, and I think it's going to be a repeat of that week 3, not necessarily score-wise, but I do think that Washington's going to win by at least 2 scores.
Kramer?
Give me the Utes on this one. This is a very comparison team that like kind of equal to, except if you want to go break it down between the quarterbacks with Tyler Huntley and Jake Browning, that's the only advantage that the Huskies have on the Utes for Jake Browning being an exceptionally well quarterback. But I feel like the running game is going to pick up for the Utes on this and get that win on the road.
Ryan?
I'm going with Washington for a lot of the same reasons. Jake, that Andrew said, Jake Browning is, I think, one of the underrated quarterbacks in this draft class in terms of I think he's probably second best behind Justin Herbert. The only other guy that I think has an argument for that would be Drew Lock. But I like where Browning is at. And on the other side for Utah, the pass defense has not been great this year. Hasn't been bad, but they've given up some big plays in the passing game defensively, and I think that continues against Washington. I think Utah, they get their opportunity, but they're going to fall short and going to have to wait for another year to win a Pac-12 title.
So these are two of the top 20 scoring defenses in college football. Washington 8th, just allowing 16.5 points per game. Utah 17th with just under 20 points per game. Utah's rushing defense, a little bit better than Washington's, but as Ryan said, Washington's passing defense is better. This is not going to be your typical Pac-12 game. This is going to be like a 20-17 type game. It'll probably be a pretty low-scoring game, and in the end, I think Jake Browning is the difference maker in this one, and I'll take Washington to get the win. This game is really just to see who gets that New Year's 6 automatic berth. I mean, neither one of these teams have even a remote shot at the playoff going into the final week of the season. So I'm taking the Huskies. Caleb is agreeing with me. He's taking the Huskies. The only person picking the Utes is one Kramer Sansone. Moving on to the next one. This is a game that I'm actually really excited for. The American Athletic Conference Championship game. Memphis is 8-4. They're going to travel to Orlando and take on Central Florida, who is 11-0. And the Knights still have a shot at qualifying for the college football playoff. They would need a lot of help, but it possibly could happen. The Knights are a 7-point favorite. These two teams met earlier in the year. UCF won 31-30 rather. Memphis led by 13 at the half, but UCF was able to come back and win it. Ryan Elliott, do the Knights get the win and potentially make a case to get in the playoff?
Yes. These are two of the top offenses in the country. UCF averaging 531 a game, Memphis averaging 530 a game. Two of the top rushing offenses in the country. Memphis, the top rushing offense in the country that doesn't run the triple option, at 275 a game, just under 276 actually a game. I think UCF is going to struggle from the loss of Mackenzie Milton, but I think they have the more talented defense. Statistically, they don't have the better defense, but they have the more talented defense. They've got a little bit better speed on that defense than I think Memphis does on theirs, and they've got a better scoring defense, only allowing 19.5 points a game. So I think in a game where we're going to see fireworks offensively, the defense is going to be the difference for UCF. So I'm going with the Knights in the AAC championship.
Andrew?
I am also going with the Knights on this one. I think with Mac Jr. now in at quarterback for the Knights, in his one game that he had against East Carolina, he rushed for over 120 yards and a touchdown. And I think pairing that with how Memphis likes to play, I'll let you talk about your man Darrell Henderson here in a minute.
My man, one of my favorite players in college football.
I think he will get over another 200-yard game against UCF potentially. But I think with the way that the teams look to be going into this game, it's going to be a very quick, time-paced game because both teams are going to be running the ball heavily. I think this is going to be another close game. I don't think that UCF's going to hold that 7-point favor, but I think it's going to be really close, but I think UCF edges out again barely.
UCF has won a few close games this season, and it's going to be a close game as well that UCF will win. I feel like I have faith in Mac Jr. to help with this offense for UCF because this was supposed to be the guy when Milton would leave anyways to come in and fill his shoes. I mean, I know it happened a little bit sooner than what they expected, but still I feel like Mac Jr. is their guy going forward. He's going to help them win this the AAC Conference Championship. And
like I said, potentially they'll be able to make a case for the playoffs. If they get to win, they would be one of maybe the most 4 undefeated teams in college football. Like I said, these two teams played the first time around. UCF, Memphis probably should have won that game. They were up by 13 at halftime. UCF came back and won. I think they get it done this time. I am taking Memphis to get the win, pull off the upset. My man, Darrell Henderson, he is the second leading rusher in all of college football behind Jonathan Taylor of Wisconsin. UCF's run defense is not good. They average allowing just over 200 rushing yards per game. It's ranked 109th total out of all college football. I think Memphis's defense, like you said, a little bit better. But without Milton, I know Mac's going to step up and make some big plays, but I think Memphis is able to get it done, and it thwarts any chances that UCF gets in the playoff, and we never have to hear about how they would beat Alabama. So I am taking Memphis. Jacob is agreeing with me. Caleb is taking Central Florida. that one is going to be a fun one tomorrow for the American Athletic Conference Championship. The next one in our pick'em, we're going to go to the Big Ten Championship game. Number 6, Ohio State, takes on number 21, Northwestern. That game will be played at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. The Buckeyes are a pretty comfortable favorite in that one, a 13-point favorite going in. This is Northwestern's first Big Ten title game, and they haven't had a lot of success against Ohio State in the years. Since 1970, Northwestern has only beat Ohio State twice. Their last one coming in 2004, the other one coming in 1971. Ohio State's won 30 of the last 32. Ryan Elliott, does Northwestern end Ohio State's playoff chances?
I don't think so. I think it's going to depend on, again, which Northwestern team comes out, which Ohio State team comes out. If we see the Northwestern team that just really dominated a Wisconsin team earlier in the year, and we see an Ohio State team that struggled with Maryland 2 weeks ago, if we get the combination of that, I think Northwestern has a chance. Unfortunately, I just don't think we're going to. I'm going with Ohio State with this one. Dwayne Haskins, J.K. Dobbins, that entire offense is just too good for Northwestern. Northwestern's going to give a fight.
I think the quarterback matchup is going to be a ton of fun with Haskins and Clayton Thorson.
This is going to be an absolute fight between these two teams. Northwestern is going to come out and they're going to do everything they can to hit Ohio State in the mouth. I just don't think it's going to quite be enough.
Do you think they cover at 13?
Yeah, I think they do. I think it's a closer game than 13. I'll give it 10, like a 31-21 Ohio State.
Sounds
something
about
like
right.
I think so too. I have Ohio State winning this one as well. Kind of like what Ryan said, just depends on what Ohio State team specifically that comes in and we come in and get. We get that team that barely snuck past Maryland, or we get that team that put a beat down on Michigan. It just depends. And with Haskins over 4,000 yards, 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, if there wasn't a guy named Tua, he probably would have had the Heisman locked up, I think, with those stats alone. But Northwestern's played some good football as well, though. They have that loss to Notre Dame, and they have that early loss to Duke that I think is really hurting them from being one of those more top caliber teams. But a guy that I think will be more of a difference maker for Northwestern, not necessarily a player, but the sideline hype man, Alex Spanos.
Their strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, and he definitely has the strength. Pat Fitzgerald calls him their secret sauce. It was what Coach says. If you haven't seen the pictures of him trending around, in the colder games, he's a big dude and he does not like wearing sleeves. He definitely shows off what he's been putting on in the gym, and you can see why he's the strength and
conditioning
coach.
If I looked like him, I probably would too. So
yeah, but I do think Northwestern is going to cover that spread. I still have Ohio State winning though.
Kramer, I know you want Ohio State to lose.
Yeah,
so bad. And you made the bold prediction earlier that it was going to be a great day for Northwestern.
Yes.
So you're picking Northwestern, right?
I have Ohio State. I'm actually going to play the smart choice of picking-wise because Ohio State's going to win this game, but I really want Northwestern to win. This Northwestern team is scrappy. They will fight and claw for wins, and they have done that all season. They should probably beat Notre Dame back on my birthday. But that could have been really nice, that birthday present, but it wasn't. Ohio State is just this team that you don't know what's going to happen. Seriously, you don't know what they're going to play. If they end up playing like they did against Michigan, hand them the thing by now. Seriously, it's Ohio State for this. I hate Ohio State.
Hand them the thing.
Right now, that's all I'm calling it, the thing, because I'm done.
He's distraught, to say the least.
Caleb is taking Ohio State. Jacob's also taking Ohio State. It's an Ohio State sweep. I am rooting for Northwestern hardcore in this one. Ohio State is the one team in the Big Ten that I didn't want to get in. I was rooting for Michigan last week. I would have been fine with Michigan getting in. I don't want to see Ohio State in the playoff. I don't think they can stop Dwayne Haskins and J.K. Dobbins. I think they can make enough of a game. I think they cover. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised for Ohio State to try to make a statement, even though it's Northwestern. I mean, but if you get a scenario, we'll get more into this in a little bit.
Northwestern's a team that's kept just about everybody within shouting distance all year.
So I don't know that Ohio State will do like what they did to Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game a couple years ago, where they just hung 59 on them because they could and they wanted to impress the committee. But I think if Oklahoma struggles with Texas and maybe Ohio State puts the throttle on Northwestern, they're going to try anything they can to convince the committee. I don't think that'll happen. But I'm taking Ohio State in that one as well. But I'll be rooting for the Wildcats for sure.
Go Wildcats for me on this one.
I don't think anyone in the Big Ten that is not an Ohio State fan is rooting for Ohio State. Because I don't care about the Big Ten getting a team in if it's Ohio State.
Yeah.
So the next one, speaking of Oklahoma, Texas, those two will do battle this weekend. This one will be played it's at Norman, isn't it?
Yes.
I believe
This is the first time in quite some time that Oklahoma, Texas.
Will be played away from.
No, it is not. It's at AT&T Stadium.
That's right. It is at AT&T Stadium.
Still in Dallas because it's
stupid.
the Texas State Fair.
That's so dumb.
Yeah.
Why is this being held in Oklahoma? Seriously.
Why is what?
I think the Big 12 championship. I think they're sticking with AT&T Stadium for a while.
Yeah, I think that's right. They did sign that contract. I think earlier in the year So it's not a bad place for it.
This is basically Red River rivalry all over again. Like say it's only without the Texas State Fair.
Yeah. Well, maybe they should have it tomorrow just for the kicks a bit. Because I'm sure the Texas State Fair is so entertaining. I don't know.
Well, Texas State Fair already happened.
I know, but they should have another one tomorrow.
Continue.
Yeah,
they should have another Texas State Fair.
I mean, it's probably it might be the second best state fair in the country. I don't know. I've never been to it. I can tell you what the best one is, but that's not the point. Moving to this one, Texas is 9-3. What does that look for?
That was a homer pick.
That was a very.
Go ahead.
Probably not wrong though. Texas is 9-3. Oklahoma 11-1. Oklahoma's a 5.5-point favorite. These two teams met earlier in the year. Texas won 48-45 after blowing a 21-point lead. They got a late field goal to win it. Kyler Murray still has an outside shot of winning the Heisman Trophy. Not a great shot. He'll probably get an invite.
He's my number 2 pick.
I would put him 2 or 3 behind Haskins. You know, you could interchange him or Haskins, I think.
I don't think so. I think the fact that he's got almost 900 rushing yards and 11 rushing touchdowns.
Haskins?
Absolutely. No, Murray.
Okay.
Just leapfrogs him over Haskins every
time.
I
think the top 3 I think it's Tua, it's Murray, it's Haskins.
Yeah.
Murray will most likely end up in New York for the ceremony next week. And Oklahoma controls their own CFP destiny if Bama beats Georgia. Or at least so we think. So who gets the win, Ryan?
I'm going for the upset. I'm taking Texas at AT&T Stadium. Oklahoma's defense is awful. Just plain awful.
It's not good by any.
So if Texas can make any attempt to control Oklahoma offensively at least a little bit, I'm talking 2-3 stops is all it's going to take to leapfrog Texas over the top in this game. I think they come out. I think they've got a chip on their shoulder, feeling like they haven't quite. They thought they were there. They thought this was the year. They've taken those 3 losses. Well, now it's time for them to show up and ruin the party.
And I think Texas is. You take away one of their 3 losses, be it Maryland or Oklahoma State. I think Texas would go into this weekend with an argument to get in the playoff if crazy things happen.
And that's where if you're Texas, you're angry at this point. You're feeling like you had a shot and it didn't come out your way. You didn't play the way you were supposed to. So now it's time to, like I said, to just show up and ruin the party. And that's exactly what they're going to try to do. And I think they're going to be successful because I think Oklahoma's defense just is not there. It's just not there.
Andrew?
I am picking Oklahoma in this one. I think with it being the rivalry that they already have, and with Oklahoma still having a shot to be into the CFP, I think that's just too much to play for. And I know that Texas already beat them once this year earlier, but Oklahoma barely beat out West Virginia, and Texas last week barely beat out Kansas. I think there's a little bit of a difference there. I know Kansas is playing a little bit better than they have been in previous years, but since their last matchup, Oklahoma has not lost a game, and Texas has lost twice, one to West Virginia and one to Oklahoma State. I think there's a couple of bumps and scratches on that Texas reputation since they've played last, but it's still going to be I think it's going to be a great game, and I do think Kyler Murray is going to leave a little mark on this game, and I think that it's going to possibly bump him above Haskins if they get a convincing win here. I think that whichever Haskins or Murray, whichever one of them, if one of them sneak into the CFP, I think that's the one that's going to be sitting behind Tua in the Heisman race.
It's going to be a fun one tomorrow, Kramer.
Give me the Oakland A's outfielder, Kyler Murray, and the Oklahoma Sooners on this one against Texas. I did a little bit of math. The last 5 games Oklahoma's played, they've put on 264 points, and the last 5 that Texas has made was 163.
How many points is Oklahoma allowed?
Well, that's the thing. If you also want to look at that I suppose I was comparing him with the Longhorns offense-wise too, as Andrew alluded to. 24 points against KU, 24 against Iowa State the last 2 games. I mean, I know they held most of the control of the game through Iowa State the entire time. I mean, they gave up a touchdown in the fourth quarter. That's it. But I'm going with the Sooners on this one because this offense is too explosive. And you're not wrong, Ryan, with it giving two or three stops, and Texas could possibly win. But I just don't trust the Longhorns to actually convert on those 2 to 3 stops.
24 points against Iowa State's not a bad day offensively either. I'm taking Oklahoma. I think everyone except Ryan is taking Oklahoma. I think that Kyler Murray, like I said, still has an outside shot of winning the Heisman. In Oklahoma, they control kind of their own destiny. I think they try to make a statement tomorrow. I think the defense will get maybe a couple stops, hopefully.
Well, they've given up 40 points in each of their last 4 games is what I'm looking at. Yeah, 40 points they let up against to Kansas.
Yeah, that's like Texas Tech numbers. So I'm taking Oklahoma in this one. I think they're able to get it done. Moving on, the final conference championship game that we will pick. It's going to be a big one in Atlanta. Number 4 Georgia, 11-1, takes on number 1 Alabama, who's 12-0. Bama is a 10.5-point favorite in this. This is a rematch of last year's national championship game.
They've now bumped the spread to 12.5.
Wow.
For Alabama.
Wow.
That's a lot.
2 touchdowns.
That's a lot for the number 4 ranked team in the nation on a neutral side.
Good, but
where actually there will probably be more Georgia fans.
Well, what was LSU ranked when they played
3.
Alabama? 3.
They were with a 13 at
13.
home.
I think it was more than that.
I think it was 13 at home, or 14 maybe.
Yeah.
The Alabama team's a real deal.
Tua Tagovailoa is unreal. And has he played in the fourth quarter yet? Did he play in the fourth quarter at all against Auburn, or is he throwing a pass in the fourth quarter, I guess?
I
don't think he did.
did.
He's unreal. These are 2 of the top 10 scoring defenses in college football. Bama with the 3rd best, Georgia the 10th best. Also, passing-wise, defensively, 10th best and 14th best. Rushing-wise, 15th best, 27th best. Bama having the slight edge in all of those. This game could be a Bama blowout, or it could be Georgia giving Bama a run for their money like they did in last year's national championship game. Ryan, what happens tomorrow?
I'm taking Bama, but I think Georgia definitely covers. I think this is going to be easily the toughest game Alabama's played all year. Georgia's definitely the best team Alabama will have played all year up to this point. The question will be if the Alabama defense can contain the electric rushing attack that Georgia brings with Holyfield and Swift. That 1-2 punch is just insane, and it's really tough to contain. They're just so quick. They can move so easily laterally that it makes it tough for linebackers to make those tackles. They make guys miss. They're fast. They're going to be tough to contain even for this Alabama defense, who is just unbelievable. But I think this is test number 1 for Alabama in terms of can they get it done again. And so I think it's going to be a true test of the mettle of this Alabama team, but I think they get it done.
So who is your college football playoff for? Alabama? Probably, I'm guessing Notre Dame.
Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Notre Dame 3, and then Ohio State 4.
So we have Ohio State getting in. We get Alabama, Ohio State.
Because I picked Texas over Oklahoma.
So we get Ohio State, Alabama. And I think Clemson, Notre Dame could be interesting.
Clemson, Notre Dame will be a good game. Ohio State, Alabama won't.
Andrew?
This is going to be the hottest take I think I've ever had. But I think every team in college football, from what I've seen in years past, every team will have a game where they slip up. And I think after what we saw from Bama pitching shutouts to LSU and Mississippi State, Citadel gave him a little bit of a run in the first half.
Because we all predicted that, didn't we?
Not in the second half. But I think that game and the Auburn game, how they were able to score, I think it brought Bama back down to earth a little bit. They were riding real high off those 2 shutouts. And why not Georgia? I think Georgia's a great team. Jake Fromm has definitely improved from last year being the young quarterback that he was. And I think it's going to be Tua versus Fromm, and I think that Georgia has a legitimate shot if they want to get in, because I think regardless, Bama's going to be in.
Yeah,
but I think for Georgia,
unless they get blown out, unless it's like a 28-point game, which I don't foresee that happening at all, Bama's in. They've sealed their fate. Georgia, they win, they're in. So this is basically a playoff game.
This is their season. This is Georgia's season, aside from the bowl game that they will get into. But this is it if they want to make it to the playoffs.
no one thought that Ohio State would destroy Michigan the way that they did. So it's a possible chance. I'm still going with Alabama on this one. Don't get me wrong, Tua and Fromm it's gonna be a good matchup. I think it's gonna be a great matchup tomorrow, and that running attack with Georgia is something that Alabama needs to be concerned about. But if it comes down to a shootout show, which it's not going to happen, I feel like defense is going to step up for both sides. Give me Tua in the Tide, but I really, really want Alabama to lose. I want Northwestern to lose. I want Oklahoma to lose. No, I mean Ohio State. I want Northwestern to win.
I was confused.
I was
like,
Andrew, who's your CFP for? Assuming you got Georgia winning, so I'm guessing them and.
I think what I had.
How would you seed them? Is the better question.
I think I had my 1 through 4. I think I had it as Clemson 1 if Bama loses, Bama at 2, Notre Dame at 3, and then Georgia sneaking in at 4. But I could also see Notre Dame taking 2 and having Bama at 3. But I don't think Bama slips 2 spots.
I think they do in that situation because you can't put a Georgia team that beat Alabama behind Alabama, can you?
Does Bama drop to 4 if they?
I don't think that if they
because you've got an undefeated Clemson team, you've got an undefeated Notre Dame team.
I wouldn't be surprised if Clemson gets the run for their money against Pitt.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
I don't think you're
I think
wrong.
in that situation you have to drop them to 4 because you can't put both at 11 and 1. You can't put a Georgia team that beat Alabama behind an Alabama team.
Yeah, but I think if it's like UCF Memphis, if it was a 31-30 game, I think in that situation, based off what we've seen from Bama already, I think you do put them slightly ahead of Georgia.
But I mean,
this is the week of chaos, though.
The game would literally be fresh in the committee's mind. I mean, all of 10 hours ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like something that happened in the first weekend of September where that happens. Obviously, the committee, what will happen, say Georgia does beat Bama, Georgia's not going to go to 1 and Bama's not going to drop to 4 at the same time because that would mean they would meet again, and they want that to be the national if it's going to happen, it would be a national championship game.
If that happens, Georgia's 3, Bama's 4.
And if Georgia moves to 3, Bama's not 2.
Yeah.
So it's probably one of them is 3, one of them's 4, one of them's 2, one of them's 4, just kind of depending. I would think, I'm with you, and I'll get more into mine in a minute, I would think Bama would drop to at least 3, maybe 4. Kramer, your CFP 4?
I want complete chaos. I really do.
That's not what you picked.
Yeah, I know. I actually didn't pick what I picked is going to be Bama, Notre Dame, Clemson, and Oklahoma. Because I mean the way that Ohio State, they have a credible loss to Purdue.
They got blasted at home.
And I know that they beat Michigan, but you still lost to Purdue that bad.
I think if Oklahoma loses, and we'll get more into scenarios here, but if Oklahoma loses and Georgia loses, then I think Ohio State, if they win, they're in. I think so. I mean, the committee's shown before that 1 bad loss isn't terrible. When you have 2 bad losses is what really hurts you. I am going to agree with Andrew. I am taking Georgia to get the win. I'll be rooting for Georgia just because I don't ever root for Alabama. I think this could be when we see Tua have a Heisman moment, but at the same time, I'm not sure. And you got to remember, guys, this Georgia team is built just like Alabama. It's built to beat Alabama. Kirby Smart, a longtime assistant under Nick Saban, is at Georgia now. They have kind of molded their program the same way that Alabama has. So I'm going to say Georgia gets in, and then, unfortunately, for the second year in a row, the SEC gets 2 teams in the playoff. And I think I might put Notre Dame ahead of Clemson, but I think it'll be Clemson, Notre Dame, Georgia, Bama, because then we get Clemson, Bama for the 37th year in a row, and we get Notre Dame, Georgia. I think that would be what I would think would happen, because I think the committee would want Clemson, Bama, because we've seen it. It's become almost like the Warriors, Cavs of college football. So I don't know. The ultimate scenario that I'm hoping for this weekend is, and if Bama beats Georgia, which goes against my pick, Bama beats Georgia, Oklahoma loses, Ohio State loses, Central Florida loses. What do you do with that 4 spot?
How much does this help? The real question is, how much does this help Notre Dame since they don't have a game this week?
Helps them a lot.
Maybe some teams need to go independent so this doesn't happen.
Yeah, but the problem is if Notre Dame would have lost 1 game, it would hurt them unless this whole chaos. But, I mean, really, and it's not crazy. I don't think it's crazy to say Northwestern beats Ohio State. I don't think it's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's crazy to say that Texas beats Oklahoma.
And if that all happens, and if UCF loses too,
is it Michigan?
How are you going to put a Michigan team in over an Ohio State Ohio State team that ran them off the field?
That's only if Ohio State loses, though.
But that's what I'm talking about. This is the scenario I'm talking about. If Ohio State loses, let's say Ohio State, Oklahoma, Central Florida all lose, Georgia beats Bama, and not even, let's say Georgia beats Bama, or Bama beats Georgia comfortably. Like Bama wins by 25. Okay?
I think the 4 is Georgia.
But then you're beating Georgia-Bama again. And you just saw a 28-3 game.
Because I don't think you can't put Michigan in.
No.
Because they got absolutely run off the field by an Ohio State team that you also can't put in
because they ran off the field and they got ran off the field by Purdue.
Yeah.
You know,
you can't put UCF in because they just lost. You can't put Florida in because they've got 3 losses. Is it Ohio State after that? No. Oklahoma? No.
You know, and this is where if Texas wouldn't have had one of those 3 losses, take out either the Oklahoma State or the Maryland loss, I think Texas, this is a scenario where they could say, hey, we would need some help, but we could say we beat Oklahoma twice. Uh-huh. Our 2 losses were 2 West Virginia by 1 and 2 either Maryland by 5 or Oklahoma State by 3. They didn't get run out of those games. I mean, they probably should have beat West Virginia. They're a 2-point conversion away from beating West Virginia. So that's a really interesting scenario. I mean, if Georgia keeps it close and loses by, say, 3 or 7, then I think it would be definitely Georgia in that situation. But it would raise a really interesting question of, do you want to see Alabama, Georgia again after Bama showed that they are significantly better than Georgia?
Is Oklahoma favored? They are favored against Texas,
5.5, I think.
I think in that scenario, since Georgia would be the only one that's not favored to lose, that's not favored, I think they would stick with Georgia because if UCF loses to Memphis,
they're done.
They're done because they were favored. I think if Ohio State loses to Northwestern, they're done because they're favored. And I think the same thing with Texas, Oklahoma. If Oklahoma loses, they're done because they were favored to win that game and they didn't. I think in Georgia, Bama, although if Georgia, as long as they don't get blown out.
That's if they get blown out.
The only other 1-loss team in that situation becomes UCF.
Yeah.
You can't take UCF, so you take the best 2-loss team, and the best 2-loss team is Georgia.
Yeah. So it's what I was really hoping.
Or Boise State.
Fresno.
What I was really hoping for.
No, because Boise State's going to beat Fresno in the WAC championship.
What I was really hoping for is that Washington State would beat Washington last week, and then get in the Pac-12. Because in this scenario, it wouldn't be crazy to say that Washington State, a 1-loss Washington State team, would have an outside shot at getting in the playoffs. Absolutely. And I would love to see Nick Saban and Mike Leach on Media Day for the college football play. I think those would be the greatest.
That would be fun.
I mean, you get Nick Saban, who doesn't answer any questions, and you get Mike Leach, who answers questions that haven't even been asked. So, I don't know. That's the scenario that I am ultimately rooting for tomorrow. I'm with Kramer. I want total chaos.
It's going to be a great day. It's going to be a great day.
Yeah, I want
64-team tournament. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's just go ahead.
Why don't we?
Because that's way too many games.
It wouldn't be March Madness; it'd be December through February Madness.
Yeah, we would be. We would finish the season in mid-April.
You'd have to cut like at least a game out of the regular season, maybe 2.
I think that's okay. That'd be fun.
So my boss actually brought up a really, really interesting playoff format that I don't think anyone's ever talked about. You know, everyone always talks about 8 teams or even 16, which is a little silly.
Yeah,
but going 6. Take the 5 conference champions.
Plus one,
and the 5 conference champions, just like in basketball, you win the conference tournament or whatever, you're in, and then that one spot is up to the committee to choose
who's that other
a group of 5. So you get representation from the group of 5 and or Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think the problem you run into there is if you have to have a group of 5,
then you get. And I think, like, if it's an undefeated group of 5 team, you know, like, obviously you don't want a 10-2 Utah State team playing Alabama in the first round. But a team like UCF would get in that situation.
I think at that point you might as well just go to 8.
Yeah.
I think logistically it doesn't make any difference to go 6 or 8.
No.
So
8, you get more games, more TV contracts.
Yeah, bingo. More money.
Yeah, I think you go 5 conference champions, and you say we're taking 3 at-larges, but you put a clause in there saying that if there's an undefeated group of 5 team, we take the highest ranked one, or they have a playoff, maybe something like that. I think that might have been what he suggested.
More games,
round,
have a play-in game. Hey, why not?
128 team bracket.
You get South Dakota State against
everybody except for like the bottom 6 teams plays. We need the 128th seed, whoever that would be right now, plays Alabama.
I don't know that I want to see that.
It'd probably be Kansas, Alabama.
Kansas
That'd be a
pulls the
Well, the way
upset.
they played
game.
against Texas, you never know.
Okay, we've gone off the rails. We still have our upset pick to make this week.
Yeah.
We do a little different this week because there weren't a lot of them that are more than 5-point spreads that we weren't picking already. So we said, you know what? Don't worry about the spread. Just pick a team that is not favored. So let's do that. Ryan Elliott, who was your team?
I came close to 5. Mine's 3.5. I'm taking Cal over Stanford in the big game. This is in Berkeley at Memorial Stadium. Stanford does not do well at Memorial Stadium. And the back end of that Stanford defense is absolutely horrifyingly painfully bad. They're giving up almost 300 yards of passing per game. I think the youngster, Chase Garbers, the freshman, comes out and has a pretty good game, and Cal gets it done at Memorial Stadium.
I'm also not sure that Stanford doesn't – I don't think Stanford has the best running back in that game.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Patrick Laird.
Patrick Laird has had a good year, 816 yards, 5 touchdowns. I still think talent level, Bryce Love's probably the better running back. He just hasn't had as good a year.
Has Bryce Love been the most disappointing college football player of the season?
I think he should. I absolutely.
You know, I mean, because I
don't think there's any question.
I know Jonathan Taylor got a lot of Heisman talk. Taylor's leading
I was like,
I mean, his team has been – Wisconsin's probably the most disappointing team, but I think Bryce Love's probably
Bryce
the most –
Love has almost 1,500 less rushing yards this year than he had last year.
Yeah. How many has he got?
665.
Yeah, I think he's
only
been
114 carries. He's been hurt. Missed the UC Davis game. Missed the Utah game. Had the Cal game postponed to this week. So, I mean, it's just he hasn't been good.
Yeah.
18 carries for 29 yards in game 1. 11 carries for 21 yards against Arizona State. He hasn't looked like Bryce Love. One game over 100 yards this season. That was against USC in week 2.
But we've seen that with Stanford running backs. You think back to Christian McCaffrey. He was still good the year before he went to the NFL, but he wasn't what he had been the year before when he torched Iowa in the Rose Bowl and just, I mean, got himself second in Heisman voting and probably had a case to beat Derrick Henry in the Heisman voting that year. So we've seen Toby Gerhardt, I think he might have played a year after. I can't remember. But, I mean, we've seen that with Stanford running backs in the past. Andrew.
I am also siding with Ryan on this one. Cal over Stanford is what I have. Their losses this year, they lost a close one to Washington State 19-13. They won over Washington 12-10 and then beat USC 15-14. So they've been able to show they've hung with some of the better teams they've played this year. Stanford has – I mean, they've played some tougher teams than Cal does, and I'll tell you that for sure. They lost to Notre Dame 38-17, lost to Utah 40-21, and that was at the tail end of when they were still ranked. And then they lost to Washington in a close one, and then Washington State. But their most notable win for Stanford is Oregon at the beginning of the year in OT, 38-31, and Oregon kind of fell off a little bit after that as well. And I think that Cal has a really good shot, kind of like how Ryan mentioned, the young quarterback, and I think that Stanford defense is going to get exposed this week.
Kramer?
So with mine, it's going to be out there because I'm picking a 7-5 Northern Illinois Huskies to beat the 10-2 Buffalo Bulls. As the last 2 games the Huskies have played, they've lost. So that's right there shows you what's happening in the Marathon.
Buffalo's a
MAC,
4-point favorite in that one.
which I'm very surprised because the way that the Huskies have played, they've averaged 20 points per game, and they also give up 21 points per game. So they get that little different factor. But the Bulls are a team that can put on points in a hurry. They have a very fast offense, but I feel like this is going to be a battle of Marcus Childers versus Tyree Jackson for the quarterback situation, as I feel like both of these guys are going to be able to hit their targets, their wide receivers, often, and it's going to be a high-scoring game. I feel like the Huskies can easily – I mean, I got them winning, but I feel like they can win by at least a couple of touchdowns against the Bills during this game.
Bulls, not the Bills.
Bulls, yeah. I mean, they might play like the Bills.
Hey, the Bills have had a couple of not-so-bad games this year. But so Kramer's taking that one. Jacob is taking Fresno State to beat Boise State. Boise a 1.5-point favorite in that one. Remember, these two teams played a couple weeks ago. Boise State probably should have lost that game. Fresno State got up big, blew it. Boise State came back to get the win. Caleb, he's going for chaos. He's taking Pitt over Clemson. I haven't seen a spread on that one, but I'm going to take a wild guess and say that Clemson is probably not only favored, they are probably pretty
It's a 27 point.
I thought I saw that.
0.5.
I think one of them in Vegas has it at 23.
On ESPN, they got it at 27.
Yeah, 27.5 is what I've got.
I could see Pitt covering.
I could see Pitt upsetting Clemson. I really can. Chaos. Let's go.
I don't know about that far, but
No.
my upset pick, not the greatest logic in the world, but I'm taking UAB over Middle Tennessee State. UAB is a 2.5-point dog in this one. They just played last week. Middle Tennessee State thumped them 27-3. UAB had -1.
Revenge.
Yeah, UAB had -1 rushing yards. They had 90 total yards of offense.
I don't know if you know this or not, but that's not good.
No, that's not good at all. Last week, Middle Tennessee State, 394 total yards of offense. UAB, just 89. Last week doesn't support my pick whatsoever, but I think it's hard to beat a good team twice in back-to-back weeks. UAB, now they know. they probably went back and watched film right away and said, okay, here's what we don't do. I think they'll have an answer this week, and I'll take the Blazers in a slight.
Come out 27-3 the other way.
And it'd be an aggregate.
They got to play another one because it's tied.
Yeah, but I'm going to take UAB in that one. So there is our upsets for this week. We're going to take a real quick break on the Weekend Sports Kickoff. And when we get back, we're going to look into the NFL and
you that the views expressed in today's show do not reflect the views of KZLX, KNWT, or Northwest Missouri State University. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. We're talking the MVP conversation. Is it Mahomes? Is it Breeze?
I think this is going to be a huge week for Kansas City, and especially offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. I think with the whole situation with Kareem, being able to plug and play in Spencer Ware and kind of show that if Patrick Mahomes is really the MVP caliber player that we've all seen him play as this year, he's going to be able to basically plug and play in Spencer Ware, and Spencer Ware is going to have the same kind of production, rushing and receiving that Kareem Hunt's had, and Ware has had that in the last couple of years. He's been a guy that can be a weapon on the receiving game and the rushing game, and if I had to pick, I would think that Patrick Mahomes, from what we saw Thursday with Drew Brees yesterday, if Mahomes plays at the caliber he's played at for the rest of the season, if he gets over 300 yards in even half of the games that he's played, I do think that he will edge out Drew Brees in an MVP race.
Kramer?
I don't even think if you want to, for MVP race-wise, you should probably add Andrew Luck into the choice of the top two into the top three, because the way Drew Brees played last night against Dallas, that's not an MVP right there. That's so if you want to narrow it down to just Brees and Mahomes has it. It's just how the cookie crumbles on this, because Mahomes has the stats, the numbers. He's a rookie. It's what he's doing right now is amazing. Can he keep it up? I think he can. I really do. Maybe there might be a little setback in a sophomore season because he's going to maybe take a step back. I don't know. Who knows? But right now it's this season, though. Right now, if it's going to be Brees or Mahomes.
I think that – sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
But,
No, you go ahead.
I think that the main argument that I've seen for Drew Brees being in the MVP is because he hasn't had one in his career, and he deserves to have one in his career. And I think that in my eyes, that's what the Hall of Fame is for. MVP should be one specific season where you outshined every other player on the field, and the Hall of Fame is what you've been able to do in your whole career, encompassing the entirety of your career. I think that's where there's a little bit of difference between that and whether Brees played better than everybody else this season or has played phenomenally in his entire career, and this season as kind of like when seniors in college get the Heisman based off their entire career, like how A.J. McCarron was brought into the conversation.
Yeah. Here's where I will disagree is in the case of Drew Brees, and I will preface this with the fact that I am a Chiefs fan, and I was born and raised a Chiefs fan, and I always have been and always probably will be a Chiefs fan. But I'm giving the MVP to Drew Brees, even after last night's performance, because the name of the award is the most valuable player. The name of the award is not the best player. It is not the guy that threw for the most yards. It's not, and so give Patrick Mahomes Offensive Player of the Year. That sounds great. MVP to me is somebody that their team would absolutely not be where they are without that guy. The Kansas City Chiefs without Patrick Mahomes are a 10-6, 11-5 football team. With Patrick Mahomes, they're a 13-3, 14-2 football team more than likely. As for the New Orleans Saints, without Drew Brees, this Saints team would be 7-9 at best. With Drew Brees, they've got a shot at 13-3, 14-2, and that's where I think the difference lies. I think the problem with Andrew Luck is that the Colts are still sitting at 6-5. They've looked better over the last few weeks, but they're still floundering a bit. They've won 5 in a row to get to 6-5. They were 1-5 at one point. This is a team that didn't look very good 5 weeks ago, and so that I think is where Andrew Luck kind of falls out of the conversation, is because of the fact that Indianapolis he couldn't save Indianapolis quite yet. But that's where I still think I'm giving it to Drew Brees in that situation, because the Saints would be a much worse team without him.
That's true. Very true.
All right. That, I think, is going to finish our conversation.